by the way, we did this analysis once which said how many startups or founders have Flipkart given birth to. And it was some 260 something.
It's a massive number.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And you are probably one of the only few guys on which overwhelmingly from everyone you hear, yeah, Anil is a rock star.
It took me 1.5 years to put a product out there. Can you imagine, like Jan 22 I started company. Till June 23 I didn't do a public launch. The airport is actually the better lounge than the lounge itself.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? Like, what is Scapia? Like, is it travel company? Is it fintech company?
I'm going to build a co-branded card with the banks, but I'm also going to build entire travel commerce stack. After a few months, growth was stalled and it came to a grinding halt. You just put in a big check, and how did you feel about this?
Welcome to Day One Podcast by Elevation, where we chronicle stories and journeys of founders we partner with. Today I have with me Anil Goteti, founder of Scapia, who's building a world-class credit card and rewards platform and also delighting the way customers travel. We partnered with Scapia first in 2023 in their Series A, then doubled down recently in the Series B. And while we've been impressed with the growth Scapia has had, what's been more delightful for me has been the NPS and the customer NPS Scapia has garnered over time with the beautiful product they've built. Before starting Scapia, Anil spent 9 years at Flipkart, where he was in leadership roles and built a lot of businesses from scratch. Anil himself is an avid traveler. He's traveled to 33 countries. I know it's becoming 34 soon, with Japan planned. So welcome Anil to the Day One Podcast.
Oh, thank you, Mridul. It's a privilege to be here, and Elevation has been a fantastic partner for us over the last couple of years, and I couldn't be happier doing this with you.
Thank you, Anil. So maybe start back. It's always fun to start with the origin story. Go back in time and talk us through like what were the insights or motivations to start Scapia.
Yeah, look, all this happened, I would say, through a journey which probably was fate, right? Looking back, it was not planned from that perspective. I had left Flipkart to become an entrepreneur. Then I started a B2B firm because now Indian consumer, there's a lot of spending and there's a lot of disposable income, and there's money in the market. But just after spending 8-9 years, I was probably burnt out on retail also. But I wanted to take a break, and I wanted to do something very different on where there's higher margins, go after the world market. Did that and quickly realized those are not my muscles. It was not going anywhere, so I decided to return money, shut down the company, and then I took a good 3-4 month break thinking about what to do, where to spend my next couple of decades, because I was seeing this as my work in my lifetime after that, and I didn't want to do this for some 2-3 years or whatever, right? I was seeing this as this is going to be a journey that's going to be a couple of decades of work, and I saw that as unfinished entrepreneurship work when I shut down my previous company. So I went very macro on this first. What are my strengths? My strengths are B2C. I've lived in India. I know how the Indian consumer thinks. Then I was looking for areas where Indian consumer is going to spend a lot of money and time on. So it was very obvious to me that there were 2 areas that Indian consumer will spend on. One is, and there's disposable income. One is high-end retail, and the other one was travel, right? I'd done retail and I didn't want to go back to it so soon, and that is more of, I would say, a selfish reason, because I like to get different problems and get energized by it. Travel is a personal passion, and for me, it gave me a new industry to go work on and disrupt it in a way that others have not done it before. But it's a very difficult problem to go enter travel and build a business, because travel happens infrequently, not like other things in retail where maybe there's shopping that happens more frequently, right? So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to enter travel. Almost 1.5-2 months was just spending time on that, iterating on ideas and going back and forth in my head. There were a couple of members who were there from the previous company who I was brainstorming with. Um, then I was looking at possibly, at that time there was a lot of BNPL ideas going on. Maybe I was thinking at that point like there's a travel now pay later angle. Is that how I should enter? But nothing which I was personally very convinced about, because this time I wanted to be very sure that if I have to climb the wall, I better climb the right wall, right? I don't want to go on a wall, then climb back down, then go back another wall. I wanted the strategy of it to make sense first, the product to make sense, and only then I wanted to build. I would say just dwelling on that problem for a couple of months led me to the idea of Scapia being this co-branded credit card with travel rewards, because it's not a new idea per se. Like, over the last 30-40 years, there have been cards with travel rewards. But I believe India doesn't have a product which is done right, done delightfully, done in a way that is actually very rewarding for the customer. So I saw it as an instant opportunity. The day it struck me, it just felt like some light bulb went off in my head. And call it my gut instinct. I knew this was it. After 2 months of just dwelling on the problem, this is it, it's going to work. And then you just keep telling yourself, you write and you think about all the pros and cons, where do you think it will fail? That was the origin of the idea. I mean, it was 2 months of just bottom-up research, top-down thinking, spending a lot of time, call it, fate. It also, the idea struck when I was actually traveling. I was in Dharamshala on a holiday with another family, and I was taking a break in December with my family. During the day, I would not think about the problem, but I used to wake up in the morning just at 4-5 a.m. and then I was just dwelling on the problem. In the hotel reception, it just struck while I was just walking. I mean, something's like, it has to happen like that. But it won't happen if you don't dwell on the problem. Yeah, that's my learning.
I've heard from your wife your early morning walks during vacation, so.
Yeah, it's the only time I get for myself during the vacations. That's how I think about it.
Dharamshala seems to be an inspiring place anyways.
It was quite inspiring. It was quite inspiring. I'm very thankful to that location for giving me the idea. And then after that, by the way, we just didn't stop there. I came back from the vacation, then I spent a lot of time, 2-3 months, just researching with customers after that. That gave me more and more conviction. That was more the skeleton I had at that time. But you need to really then put the right nuts and bolts. What will we offer? What will we not offer on the card? What kind of travel rewards will make sense? What kind of decisions do we need to make it work? What will we build first? What will we not build first? All of these are very critical decisions, because when you are in an early stage company, you can't be building everything. You have to be narrow, sharp, have a true wedge that will work very well, right? And those are my learnings, by the way, from the previous company that I had shut down. Yeah. So I was not in any rush to go build something and just throw something out there.
Actually, that's an interesting point. Before we get into Scapia and what it is, maybe some mental models for a lot of early stage founders who think about starting from.
Yeah.
This whole experience of starting something with a co-founder, now you've gone solo, one change, B2B, now you've gone B2C. You also made the choice to return that capital, which is an interesting one, and then took your time before raising even the seed round here. So maybe talk us through these 3-4 decisions you took and what was in your mind, and that's great learning, I guess, for a lot of people.
No, it's a great learning, and by the way, now people are warming up to being able to return capital. When we were doing it back then, it was the time when everybody was raising millions and billions, right? So it was quite unusual at that time, and people would even say, why are you returning money? Go pivot and do something else, right? It's not that we didn't try pivoting, but when you know that something is not going to work and you believe that you're actually not spending that capital in the right way, it is somebody's hard-earned money at the end of it in the value chain of money, right? So you have to be respectful towards that and make sure that you do right by that money. Then, the way I thought about it is, I'll be able to sleep better if I take that decision. So one is, recently I spoke to a founder 2-3 months back who was grappling with this decision. How is it going to affect my image? Will I be able to raise capital out of this? People consider me as a failure. I was like, first, you're thinking about the consequences first. That is the second part of the decision. What you need to first think about is what is the first right decision.
Correct.
Then you can always deal with the consequences later on, right? So I always knew that was the right decision. So then there's only 1-2 days of uncertainty after that, the way I saw it. That obviously all my investors were very, very supportive, and that's how they all came back into the cap table also, because I wanted them to come in after being so supportive. But the most stress I had at that time was actually what will happen to my team. How do I make sure they are safe? That's where the founder should spend the most of time, because investors go through these ups and downs, and that's part of the game, right? So that was one, I would say, open invitation to any founder who wants to discuss this with me. I'm happy to give my learnings from that. But the early part of the journey is actually that 0 to 1 is the hardest part. Is the hardest part, and the more time one spends on it, the better for everybody. The founder, the team, the investors, everybody around. And there's this constant, I would say, dilemma between running fast, experimenting, but also finding that right product market fit. And there are different schools of thought here, right? Like if you look at the Y Combinator school of thought, it'll be like fail fast, put some things out there, figure out the product market fit, and then otherwise, go move on to the next one. I think different founders and different people have different muscles, and they have to figure out what is right for them. For me, that's not something that I can relate to, right? For me, it is about figuring out what is macro, what are my strengths, what is the consumer need, what can I build that can actually solve this problem, taking my time to think through that, then releasing the product. Even before releasing the product, having enough of conversations with everybody. It's still nerve-wracking, by the way. It took me 1.5 years to put a product out there. Can you imagine, like Jan 22, I started the company. Till June 23, I didn't do a public launch, right? I obviously have travel rewards, so I had some part of the travel platform live with flights and hotels. In 22, at one point I launched flights, and one point, early 23, I launched hotels, right? But that's not full PMF for me, because this is just saying, is my flights funnel working, is my stays funnel working, but that's not the company, that's not the product I was building. So there is obviously trade-offs there of taking time and then launching it versus going fast and failing. I don't know what I would have done if, let's say, I launched the product and things wouldn't have worked in June 23. But I don't think one should think about the failure, but rather think about all the ways to minimize that failures and the probability of failing, and keep investing and making it better, right? So the more time one spends on this, and I'm appreciating this more and more, and I'm speaking to more founders who are grappling with this on what idea, what thesis should I start the company in. I am able to relate to, and I appreciate more founders who have actually done more research, speaking to partners, future customers, going and speaking to other firms who have operated in the space, failed, or investors, done their own bottom-up work. I believe they are a lot more thorough and have a higher chance of success, is my point of view. Obviously, I may be right or wrong, but that's what I ended up doing. And that is what has helped me hold the same core belief for so many years. I'm not pivoted, I'm not doing anything different. It's the same focus, same product that I've been thinking for the last 3-4 years and building on it, right?
Yeah, no, I resonate with that a lot. Also, I think it's very domain specific, like, this ship fast, fail fast. I think the domain that you operate in, it requires a fair degree of thoughtfulness, compliance, orchestration.
That's true.
But that brings me to this question, like, is it a bird, is it a plane, is it Superman? Like, what is Scapia? Like, is it travel company, is it fintech company? What are you really building here?
We say we are a travel fintech company, but look, the product is simple. Maybe it's a good time to talk about what the product is.
Yeah, exactly.
We are a co-brand credit card which gives travel rewards. We serve Gen Zs and millennials. If you look at today, what is available in the market for these customers, there's a run-of-the-mill credit cards which give them, certain rewards. Either some of them give bit more value, but then they are become paid cards, or they have it's a co-brand working with a consumer internet platform where the experience may be okay, but the application, being able to get the card, being able to pay the bills, being able to see all your transactions, that is usually a mess. Okay, like it's a shame today that everybody in the country has to use a third-party app to pay their credit card bills, right? They should, like, ideally they should be able to pay it on their own app, right? So, so I would say half the products have one side broken, where the card experience is not as delightful, or the other part is broken where you get the card, you're accruing a lot of value, but how to use that value is not so great, right? So, in fact, this was my thesis right at the beginning, to say we're going to build both. We're going to build both and give such a good integrated experience that the experience is fantastic for the customer. That is on one dimension. But at the same time, because we're doing both, we're able to pass on more value back to the customer, and hence it's also gratifying for the customer from a value perspective. So then both dimensions we are able to invest and make it done. By the way, it's a very hard decision. This was all, like, usually founders and everybody build one part of it, right? But at early stage, being able to say, I'm going to build both. I'm going to build a co-branded card with the banks, but I'm also going to build entire travel commerce stack. But that's the investment which is, I would say, creating the differentiation for us, but also helping us actually provide a fantastic experience to the customer. So, the card is this. It's basically, I would say, tap everywhere, accrue your coins, the reward points on our platform, and then travel anywhere. And your flights become cheaper. You probably get free flights. We have now 6 categories across: flights, hotels, buses, trains, travel visas, and we have an exciting new category called unmapped, where people can travel with strangers on a fully arranged vacation. So you can redeem across any of these 6, and we'll be adding more and more categories like this. And then when you travel, you also travel in style. You get unlimited lounge access, and we've also innovated on that front, where the customers can use the entire airport as a lounge, where they can tap the card anywhere in a restaurant, or have a, lounges are getting crowded and there's long lines, but being able to use it there. And when you're abroad, you also get zero forex, and with a very transparent view of what the currency is. So, and it's a free card. There's zero joining and zero renewal fees. It's a beautiful looking card which is made for Gen Zs and millennials. We want them to also have fun with the product, and the app is a lot of fun to use, and people use it very regularly, every day and every 2 days. So that's the product. That is Scapia. We are a financial services firm as much as a travel firm, and we're bringing both together and offering that. We partner with banks to make it happen. Obviously, we don't have the license, and we are rightfully so not allowed to issue cards on our own. But we work with banks which are looking forward to innovating with us and put this product out.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, the product is definitely brilliant. Like some of these lounge features and all, as a personal user, I must tell you, it's such a high NPS product. I almost feel like lounges are now anti that status, right? It almost feels like if you're in lounge, you are with the...
It's the airport is actually the better lounge than the lounge itself.
Yeah.
See, I think different people have different needs. I think also different airports, the lounges are different. So some lounges in some airports are very, very good.
Makes sense.
But sometimes the lines are long, sometimes the lounge itself is messy. So this is again bottom-up consumer thinking, right? You see this trend, you see there's a problem, nobody is doing anything to solve it. Then we figured out that there's an opportunity to innovate here. Then we said, you know what, we have a card, we have the proposition, we can actually make this happen in a way where it's not like the airport doesn't have options.
Yeah.
So then we put out a product last year where the customer can go tap the product at any of the restaurants. Then they get, the entire money back on the card as coins, which is anyway valuable to them because they can redeem it for travel. And they get choice outside the lounge, right? So it benefits the customer. It benefits us because we're not dependent on only one partner at the airport, but we have now various partners. right? The customer has the choice, we get the choice. Then, tomorrow it also helps the customer travel. So it plays into the proposition very nicely. So that's why we've been thinking of innovations in various pockets of the proposition.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. So net, you're saying you're building two companies in one.
In a way, yes. In a way, it's hard, but it's enjoyable. I think half the team is focused on the card side, and we work very closely on a bunch of those things. Half the team is focused on all the travel parts and the consumer internet side. So I get to dabble in both and problem solve. And they're both very different, by the way. Different problems, different pace, different learnings. But it's fun. I wouldn't do it any other way now. Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. And there's a lot of strength on the consumer tech side you bring to the table just by sheer experience you've had and what scale you have seen. And I always have this framework. We did this podcast with all fintech team at Elevation recently. We were saying this whole gray hair or no hair framework in financial services. I mean, you qualify a little bit, but not by virtue of experience in financial services. So how do you think of, therefore, then capabilities or team or the way you have strengthened the fintech financial services side of capabilities for Scapia?
No, it's extremely important for any founder or any leader in the company also to think about what are your strengths, what does the business need, how do you marry both, and also how do you make sure that you bring in the right expertise into the company where you may not necessarily have that, right? So the way I thought about it is, I have good consumer thinking. I have the ability to run the commerce side of it. By the way, I have had some exposure to financial services in Flipkart back in the day. I helped build all the seller financing book. I was running the marketplace, but it's still at Flipkart scale it's a lot easier because all the partners, NBFCs, everybody will come and say we want to serve your sellers, and then being able to lend to them. And I played a smaller role in being able to launch the co-branded card for Flipkart. Though I was not part of the fintech team, I was running marketing then, so I got a good ringside view to it. But I knew that I didn't have all the bank relationships. I didn't necessarily understand everything end to end, right? I almost did a PhD in the first 6 months of running the company on all of this stuff, right? To be able to know what all happens. I spoke to some ex-colleagues of mine who are very proficient in running all of these co-branded P&Ls. How do they work? What is it? There's a lot of learning for me personally. I would do just calls and say, tell me how to do. Whenever you're free on a Saturday, come, let's sit down. You walk me through the P&L, right? So you go through that exercise of understanding what does the program ROA look like, how is money spent, how is a regular organic ROA, what is a co-brand ROA, then what are the regulations. At that time, by the way, as soon as I started, there was a credit card, debit card guidelines which came in 22. So that was a fantastic document for me to also be the guiding document for how to build the company. Because there were clear rules and regulations laid out for me.
It was a great time for you.
It was a great time for me. I was lucky, in a way that as soon as I started, within a couple of months, this framework was laid out for me. What to do, what not to do, right? That helps, right? Because then, and I'm used to reading contracts and regulations and drafts. So it's not alien to me to be for me, I had a lot of comfort. I also, because of my past experience, hired a bunch of advisors from Big Four who are experts in reading some of these regulations and advising me on what to do, what not to do, which have helped us in good stead in compliance longer term. But on the business side, I knew this was the business I wanted to build. Then, first 12 months at various stages, I would go look for people who are experts in each of this. On the banking side, people who have done co-brand partnerships. On travel side, people who have done travel supply. On the finance side, people who have run some fintech finance part or consumer internet funnels, right? Customer service, being able to handle things at not only scale later, but also are agile to be able to run it in the beginning, right? So I had a mental model of these are the functions that we'll need. The company needed solid product tech design, right? Half the company is all about scalable products that we wanted to build. And this is a product where the brand is important, the experience is important, the delight is important. So being able to hire for the right marketing people, the design folks, being able to bring in expertise in each of these functions, deliberately went about it in a systematic manner, married everything together. And I think now, after 3.5 years, I don't claim to be an expert, but I'm well versed. I can have a conversation with any leader in the banking services and the financial services world and have a deep conversation, right? So, yeah.
No, I think if you break it down also to first principles,
Yeah.
it is really consumer backward thinking,
Yeah.
right? And really
Yeah.
thinking through that.
Yeah.
And then I really like, I remember
Yeah.
spending time with your
Yeah.
top team in 23 when we
Yeah.
engaged first. It's a
Yeah.
nice eclectic mix of
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
domain's experts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you've done a great job. And before I move to like traction or progress, I think the other interesting common attribute I think for financial services and consumer is trust
Yeah.
and brand.
No, it's very important.
And I feel like at the risk of it being a little controversial, I feel like a lot of financial services brands are big brands.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many of them measure or score well on customer NPS, right? I mean, there's a trust because you're big and you've been around, but is it trust or delight because you really delight customers is not clear to me.
Correct.
So maybe talk us through your philosophy on building trust, building brand, really making people feel Scapia is, from a vintage perspective, maybe not that old a company, but from a trust and brand perspective, I do think your presence has a lot of positivity around it. So how have you gone about doing that?
No, it's a very good question, Mridul. I think for me, this is something that I wrote down in a document as to what will be the pillars of the company. And trust is a very important part of being able to build a brand. Financial services needs a lot of trust. Travel needs a lot of trust. Right? See, when people are using your product when it comes to matters of money,
exactly,
right? It's a very important thing for you to be able to hold for the customer, that trust. Similarly on travel, right? People are spending a lot of money and they're going for some time and experience that they want to go and enjoy with their family and all of that stuff. So they are trusting you with that experience and time. So and it's not about just having a good time. You should be able to serve them and help them when things go bad in travel, right? That's when actually the brand really helps, right? So trust is actually very core to how we think about the product. Trust is an outcome. Trust is an outcome of every single touch point that we think about. So when we think about how to sell the card, we are in charge of, as a co-brand partner, a lot of marketing and distribution, right? We are very clear. This is what we'll offer. We will not offer. These are the charges. This is the most important terms and conditions, right? We will not do selling for the sake of selling, right? We want to make sure that we talk about the product and the features as is, so that the customers understand and they have made the decision, right? Even working with the bank and all our partners, let's say we are encouraging the customer to do EMI, right? On the product, there's a lot of work that is on what is this EMI, how much charges, what will be the overall APR, what will be the cancellation, everything is done nicely, on our product. Obviously, the banking partner does all of this stuff, but we are there as a sounding board, especially on the app, what is happening, all of the communications to be able to do right by the customer. I believe our regulator, by the way, also does a fantastic job in making sure they protect the consumer.
Yeah, of course.
We want to make sure that the consumer is able to make a very informed decision, and it's a dimension that we look at in every product that we release, right? Similarly on travel, right? Any decision, cancellation, rescheduling, all of that stuff, is it done well? Are we able to explain to the customer what are the charges, what will happen if they do ABC, but something bad happens, all of that stuff. They should be able to make their informed decision and do that. And today in the AI world, it becomes a lot easier, but you have to have that mindset and culture to do it, right? Then the brand can build on top of this. So for me, in 5 years, a really solid outcome will be that people are able to trust us completely as a brand for various aspects of this, and they see us as being innovative. But that will not happen unless we do things right at every step. It's not that we'll get every move right, but as long as we have the right intent and we make it clear to the customer transparently, if something that we have done inadvertently, we apologize and then make right by the customer longer term. I believe that we will also earn the trust and do that, right? So it's something we think about very actively, actually, spend time on it. Yeah.
And while being very compliant, very transparent, I think you've done a lot of great work also on brand building, right? I remember our discussions long back when you were teasing or introducing the product to me in phases. Having coffees, you would say, this is where I've got the card ink from, even thinking like that, unboxing. So maybe talk us through a little orthogonal to trust, and sometimes people think contradictory, but like maybe also talk us through some of the stuff you've done on brand and marketing.
Yeah, no, that it's a very important dimension. See, we are very early, right? I would not declare victory and say, our brand is, done everything that we need to. I think we are very early, and there's a lot that we can innovate on. And I believe we have started off on the right notes. Again, brand is an outcome of what you do with the product and with the communication and the marketing aspects of it, right? So we spend a lot of time actually building the product in a way that appeals to the consumers. Then you can double down on it with marketing, right? So
makes sense.
So even our unboxing, how it is done, and there are like tons of YouTube videos now which show our unboxing, and people really love it. Yesterday also there was a message on social media where the customer said, I received the product and somebody should give a raise to the design team which did this. But it's how much they enjoy it. They're like, it's a small delight, but it's done very economically. It's not like we spent, lakhs and crores on it. It's just time that it's an ethos we have, that we care about every touch point and we spend time on it. The card design, we did probably 5-10 designs, and then we threw out the ones we didn't like. We ordered a lot of samples, we brought it, then we saw it, then we went with also a card version where there's a male version, there's a female version, and then there is a version for a non-binary category as well. And then the ink comes from London and then is used in India. So all of this is thought through, and the time you spend on it gives you rewards longer term. And we do that with all the products that we do. And the physical part of the card is one aspect of it. But even on the app, on various categories, all of the stuff, unless you do the product right, the marketing job cannot be done right. The marketing team and the brand then can build on top of it and do a lot of innovative stuff. And amplify it in a way, talk about, like how to make noise. Even that, while we've innovated on the product, we've innovated this year in the IPL, right? And the marketing side, where for the first time in the country, I would say any customers of a co-brand card can go along with the team in a bus, right? It's a bus that follows the team bus, and they walk into the stadium in style and watch the match and then have a good time, right? And that's for me a category that we have been building, which is called Scapia experiences, and this is one such Scapia experience. In fact, all the customers who were in the bus felt like they were the team, because everybody outside were waving at them and they were like thinking it's the team.
Did they give autographs as well?
Maybe if that come out, that would have happened next. But so you have to innovate on both fronts, but that's what builds a brand. You have to innovate on the product first, then amplify it with innovations in the marketing side, and then that leads to good brand, right? Yeah.
So you've done all this work around compliance, right? Orchestration, building trust in terms of transparency. You've done all the work around being very thoughtful about both the physical product and the tech product. And then you launched. And then what made you feel like you have product market fit? Like what metrics or what feedback, both qualitative, quantitative, give you a pulse?
I think a lot of people ask me this, okay? As a founder, you will know. You will know this product market fit when you have it, okay? When there's no product market fit, in fact, the negative is easier to answer. you
I think negative even I can answer.
yeah. Like numbers will obviously not move, repeats will not happen, right? You will start thinking about what pivots do I need to do. Your team will be looking for more direction and they'll be questioning themselves, right? People outside, the customers, will not be raving about it and not putting anything on, various forums and various places. It every new customer that you want to bring in, you'll find it's easier and cheaper to be able to bring them on board as a consumer brand, right? So it is not one thing. It is all of these coming together. You know that the customer is really happy. They love the product. You're getting fan email or people raving about it on social media. You're seeing that the metrics are holding really, really well. Your core, which is what the company is going to be built on, that loop is working really, really well. That's when you know your product market fit. And sometimes one metric may be here and there off, but that's for you to tweak and fix. So I don't want everybody to think that everything should be firing.
It's not
right?
picture perfect.
It's not going to be picture perfect. That's okay. As long as the core strategy and things are aligning at that level, it will work. But yeah, you can't be fooling yourself. You have to be very clear. Are you being biased in observing your metrics and what you're telling yourself versus what the world is telling you? That you have to make a very careful distinction. So I was very sure as soon as we launched. Obviously, it was nerve-wracking to be able to launch after 1.5 years and then figuring out if there's going to be product market fit. But within 1-2 months, I had very good clarity. I knew that it was working. Yeah.
So did we.
No, I know.
That's when we partnered.
Yeah, I know. That's when we partnered. Yeah. And that's when I also knew that I will do justice to the new money that will come in.
Ready to raise.
Yeah,
capital.
ready to raise capital, right? When you know that there's product market fit, seed was all about figuring out product market fit. But for me, the next round was about using that money wisely for growth, right? So, and doubling down on what the initial product was. So, in fact, I remember the conversation. We were going for a coffee and you were asking, do you believe you're ready? I said, yeah, these are my numbers. This is what I'm feeling. This is what it is. And I believe I'm ready. In fact, the 2 months before, we had that conversation. I told you I was not ready. You were also saying, I think, yeah, we have to wait and see. And I didn't want to fundraise at that time. But once you know it, then you line things up, right? Yeah.
So which brings you to this round, Anil. It's kind of a interesting round. Of course, we double down equally in this round, but you've gone through this interesting phase where you spent 18 months orchestrating and building the proposition. You launched, you had a good run. And then for last few months, because of more external reasons than I would say are internal reasons, there was a stop to the program. And you just got off the gates, but you still, you just ended up raising $40 million. What's the secret sauce?
Look, I don't know that I want to call it the secret sauce, but for me, look, I think the way I thought about the time last year when, the program came to a bit of a halt was, this was a great opportunity where I could strengthen the product and make it even more worthwhile for customers coming in. Look, it's a very large market. There's a lot of demand for it, and there's going to be a demand even in the future for this, right? I mean, India has now close to about 100 million cards. India is going to go to 200 million cards by FY28. There's roughly 1.8 to 2 million cards being issued every month, right? And travel is booming. There's a lot of demand, tailwinds for travel as well. I knew that the TAM is going to exist not only now but for the next 10-20 years, right? That's how every investor also will look at it. But when I have a product where I know that the product proposition is working, and obviously I had the patience and the balance sheet to be able to use it last year, I took some counterintuitive calls, right? I decided to not just stall hiring per se. I invested in the team a bit further. I strengthened the product. We had only 2 categories when we launched. We had only flights and stays. But last year was fantastic for our product. We launched 4 other categories. we tried a lot of things and we innovated on that. Like this airport lounge, airport experiences and privileges was something that we didn't have before. That was an innovation that came last year, right? Last year, before 2023, we had only the zero forex proposition. Last year, we built around it in I would say a very meaningful manner. Today, the customer can come onto our app, check the rate before they travel, so that drives transparency.
I've seen that, yeah.
Then they go abroad, then they get real-time view of the transaction. Then after they come back, they give a full summary. This is all investments in the product. We invested a lot in compliance. We invested a lot in building newer bank partnerships. We have signed some more bank partnerships which we'll announce in the coming months after we are launching with them. That took a lot of business development and effort to go to Bombay and have meaningful conversations with new banking partners. We strengthened and deepened our partnership with our current banking partner, Federal, where we made sure that we deepen the product with them and ensure that the customer will have an even more beautiful experience while they're onboarding. Right? We had only the Visa variant, but now we have the RuPay variant as well. Right? We had only one network live, but we've deepened our partnership with NPCI on that front. So last year, I would say, despite the external reasons and factors where we were not able to grow as fast as we wanted, we have invested in our product and team so much and the ecosystem that when everything resumed this year, we were that much stronger. All right. These are things that are outside your control, but as founders, you need to be resilient and you need to figure out what you can do for the longer term. We knew we were doing everything right? So I knew that our time will come where everything will go back to growth and all of that stuff and being able to serve our customers in a big way. But everybody, was congratulating us last week or the previous week. What I was telling them is it was the hard work of 2024.
Of course.
It was the hard work of 2024 that helped us raise around, but there's more hard work to do to be able to use that money wisely. We are a consumer internet company where we need to actually build a brand. We need to make a lot of investments in technology and product. We do need that capital. We do have a strong balance sheet. Even before the 40 million, we had a good balance sheet.
Of course.
But, when I look at a company which has to be long lasting and, the way I see it is it has to survive me. And it has to be there for, let's say, a century or, next 50 years. I want to make sure that I double down with partners and I strengthen the balance sheet further so that I become an enduring company, right? So, all credit to all the investors also to partner with us. The round did not happen after everything restarted. It was actually in the works and everything was happening even before that, right? So it's an outcome of all of that.
I'm mildly aware of that.
Yeah. So this is more for the camera and the audience, but I would say now we are well positioned to take advantage of the hard work with the capabilities and the financials.
Yeah.
That leads me to an interesting question, Mridul. I think I've said you come in now to our company, invested in our company a couple of times, right? I remember our Series A conversation was actually an outcome of a conversation that happened for almost a year or so, right? You were quite keen on also looking at us at the seed stage. But at that time, I had shut down my company, right? And a lot of founders have this worry. You shut down a company and you've, failed within quotes as to not being able to build a good company. Why did you invest in us at that time? And then I have a second part to this question I'll ask you after you answer this. How did you think about that decision of not only the thesis, which I would love to hear from you as to how you thought about it, but also these softer aspects which probably play on everybody's mind, which played on my mind to a certain extent, but didn't play obviously after I had taken the investment later on. So,
it's an interesting question, and to me there are 2-3 aspects to it. I think one is the sheer grace and class in which you took the decision to shut down, and we had this deep chat on what happened. The way you returned the capital to the investors itself, to me, is a class act. And I mean, I wish more founders think and do like that, because failure is a given, like all of us fail. What perhaps you do realize, but you don't show it given just the personality you are, is also you carry with you a stellar reputation. I think, like, I always joke about this, and I don't know again if it's controversial to quote, but I feel like in Flipkart ecosystem is a fascinating ecosystem. By the way, we did this analysis once which said how many startups or founders have Flipkart given birth to, and it was some 260 something.
It's a massive number.
Crazy, and I missed a bunch of them, which I regret. But every time someone starts up from Flipkart, depending on who you speak to, you get very different point of views. But every time you speak to the relevant folks who are around you and who by themselves are people of, who have gone and built something and who really matter, you are probably one of the only few guys on which overwhelmingly from everyone you hear, Anil is a rock star. I'm just saying it just because you're sitting in front of me. I'm saying it because that is what I discovered. So our hunger and desire to do something with you was anyways very high. I mean, irrespective of what you're doing. I mean, that's how it started. And if you remember, it started out with this, ping during COVID and walk in our wonderful bubble of APR on saying, let's discuss. And I mean, the fascinating story for me is it took me 6-9 months for you to even tell me what you're doing.
No, I wanted to be, I wanted to be in stealth. I wanted to be in stealth. And I didn't want to engage with anybody, because for me, what mattered at that time was talking to customers. So it was not out of any disrespect, but more of wanting to be in stealth.
No, I appreciated that, by the way. I appreciated that. And I mean, call it courtship or dating. It made me more, curious about what you're up to, but was very respectful, of course, of your wish to keep it stealth. And God knows how many coffees I bought you in third wave in that phase. But every time I used to meet you, at least the principles you used to speak for, the kind of stuff that you're building. And over time, we, of course, you opened up, we invested enough time together. My confidence kept increasing. I remember sometime in late 22 or early 23, you gave me a sneak preview of the product. And that seemed like, wow, like fantastic, made a lot of sense.
I remember when also you just rebranded yourselves to Elevation and you raised the...
That must be, I mean, that was 2021, but this was somewhere around.
I think it was the closure of the new fund.
Yeah, it should be the new. So I was, look, and we'll come to the thesis, but to me, more importantly, actually what also people underappreciate is the amount of engagement time you need to build comfort and confidence in someone. And not every time in an early stage deal you get that luxury.
And it's for both sides, by the way. It's for the founder also to build that comfort and...
So I think that period of, call it what you may, courtship, was actually great to build confidence, to say, look, I'll be happy to pull the trigger whenever you're ready. In fact, I remember pitching to you even in seed on saying, look, we'll turn this around in a few hours, give me a chance, create some space. And I respect the fact also, by the way, that increased the respect of you saying, look, I'm going to replicate the set of investors who have supported me, and they're a great set of investors, of course. And I really respect that, and I wish again, more founders think like that. So, we were coming at a vantage point where anyways the time we spent with you, the chemistry and equation we had, and the respect we had for both your track record and the way and the philosophy you work with was very high. And I think that's really, really most important in early stage. It's really the conviction on the person. I think too was the thesis. Look, I keep talking about this framework of access, efficiency, and experience, which I think are three vectors on which I think fintech startups can build in India. And I think this is one of those magical product, and the way you have designed it, which kind of solves for all three. And which is very, you will sometimes find access. It's a lending company lending to segment.lend to. You'll sometimes find people being more efficient. I think this is beautiful because you solve for access because you're really giving and democratizing the kind of experience a lot of people on the higher end of the card segment have to Gen Z and millennials, and saying, look, here is a world-class experience. It's travel, it's reward heavy, it's a conscious choice, delightful experience. you're solving for experience, because I truly think this is the best product right now out there. The experience is phenomenal, and I mean, all of us at some end of the bracket have programs which may have higher rewards in terms of percentage math if you do, but I think from an experience perspective, this is just superlative. So it's a default card, and you're building it efficiently because I think you magically blended commerce and fin, and that's other part of our thesis which we talked a lot about in our bottom line report, which is this whole contextual credit is the way world is moving to, because you should there is value for credit as only credit, of course that will remain, but this whole beauty of saying, look, I acquire customers with a fin wedge, they work with me on brilliant program and rewards, and then there is a virtuous loop within it where they redeem. So I just think it's very well thought through, and all credit to your taking time out and thinking. So I think it was a great marriage of thesis plus a lot of confidence and relationship with the founder, and then the early traction was fantastic as well. So I think when you called in 23, whenever that call was, I think we were pretty sold, and I don't think it took a lot of time.
That's again, a lot of work that both sides have done to be.
No, absolutely.
No, thank you for that. I think thank you for showing the conviction. I think if you ask any founders, especially at the earlier stages, we all respect people who have showed us conviction in various ways. It's the investors who have shown the conviction before things are built, or slightly right after things are built. It's the people who join us in the journey when money is not raised and like joining the company to build. Ecosystem partners who believe in us. So very grateful to all those people who come, especially after you get bigger and all the stuff, then conviction decisions become a lot easier in life. But thank you for showing that conviction. Which leads to me to part 2 of my question, right? One is, you made the investment. Then after a few months, our growth was stalled and it came to a grinding halt. How did you feel about this? And as a founder, I had my own things to deal with. But you just put in a big check, and it was a reasonable check, right? How do you think about these things in this world as the company goes through these things? And then now you followed it up in Series B where you've doubled down. Obviously, Peak led the round, but you guys doubled down in this round in Series B. So, how did you deal with that, and what led to this doubling down?
No, 2 phases or 2 parts to this question. One is, how did you deal with that when it happened? I remember distinctly, both you and I were traveling in our year-end breaks.
Yeah, that's right.
And getting a call from you, and look, the first reaction is, of course, like, wow, we've just put in the money and what's happened. I think what I really appreciated during that phase was how communicative, transparent and open you were. Look, for me, it's not the first time I'm investing in a financial services company. That's all I've done for many years. So this is nothing new to me. I can do with less of this excitement. I can deal with less excitement like this, but it is something which has happened before. So it's not a new thing. I think the confidence even your banking partner showed in you, the reason for which this happened, which you were very open about, we validated. In the end, it boiled down to saying, look, this is what it is. The good thing was, what happens to you in a lot of situations is a lot of money has been spent, and you have to restart. I think the good thing in this, very practically speaking, was you had your existing base where you could build on that. A lot of new capital raise was still on the balance sheet. So we can really reorient ourselves to thinking, look, how do we deal with it? And the second is doubling down. I think doubling down was a culmination of what we saw and how you acted in last 12 months. Exactly what you spoke about. I think you did a great job during this phase to say, look, this is how much I need to spend to build capabilities, but not more. So you took the right calls to bring burn and control. You took the right call in making sure your existing franchise of customers is well served. Which by the way shows in metrics. The interesting metric is nothing really has attrited in terms of either the volume or the value of transactions. And I think you really, really doubled down. I remember us having this chat, look, let's think about product build and other optionalities to build on top. And I think it's just wonderful example of if you really become inward looking, cut the noise, build on product, and I think build the product. So actually doubling down was very easy, right?
Yeah, no, kudos to the team for
Yeah,
actually
no, absolutely.
executing
I
on
think
this.
it's a fantastic team.
Thank you for, I would say, again, the conviction, and
Yeah.
you know, I see this as a very long-term partnership, and you know, outcomes will be outcomes. But for me, what matters is how comfortable is the journey and going through these ups and downs together. Yeah.
No, likewise, Anil. So, I mean, I guess we are at the end of the conversation. So maybe any closing advice, and this has been a great sort of master class in like how to think when you start, to how to make design choices thoughtfully, to how to raise capital and what to use it for. So, any closing advice for founders who are just about starting up, whether it's in consumer, fin, otherwise, and especially ones who are thinking of doing something which is a little more complicated that you have done, like two businesses, one or multiple categories?
See, off late, I've been hearing a lot of folks say this, and you know, I have a counterpoint to this, and this is especially for early stage founders, is all the ideas in India are dried up, and there's very little innovation to be done. I think that is a bit shallow in terms of saying I've not done deep enough work to figure out where is the idea, right? I believe if one spends time on a problem and figuring out what they're passionate about, where the world is going, what things will change, but I think Jeff Bezos says this, right? What things will not change. Then you look at it top down, there's a lot of ideas that I think can be solved for. So I think one needs to spend time on it, and I will encourage early stage founders to really figure out where are the opportunities, and happy to brainstorm with anybody. I like to, you know, pay it forward. Others have done this with me, and I like to pay it forward with early stage founders who are thinking about some ideas. But again, spending time on, if something is complex and hard to do, nowadays I tell people, and again this is a bit counterintuitive, people say, oh man, it's very hard to do. But I say, you know what, that's a good thing. Yeah. Not everybody will do this, right? So that becomes a moat for yourself. Then you need to figure out, are you capable of doing it, or what does it take to solve this, and go after it. If something is hard to do, climb it. Because then tomorrow that barrier becomes your moat and becomes somebody else's barrier. Then you're solving a real problem. Thank you for having me here, Mridul. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was great to look back at what we have done together, but also more importantly, I'm looking forward to what we can build together in the next decade. These are long journeys, and these are bound to have ups and downs, but it is fantastic to have a partner who is going to walk alongside you through these ups and downs. So thank you for having me here.